Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Between Two Shirts, where I talk shirt with my friend Paul. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. How are you?
Good. So I'm really excited for today's episode. Funny enough, I've never done a Premier League prediction for the table, basically. So this is my first one. What are your thoughts, just before we start the top 20, what are your thoughts on this season?
Yeah, look, I'm happy it's back so soon. I think it's that break in between seasons that we normally have is a bit cumbersome. So I think this is definitely, it's keeping me on edge and keeping me excited for football now, which is great.
Yeah, not many teams have had a chance to sort of recycle or clean out the teams and go on to a new year. So with that, and of course with COVID in mind, I'm not sure if it's been officially sort of announced if they're cutting the fans or if the fans are in general allowed to be at whatever capacity, but it's going to be a strange season, of course. 2020 wasn't the best, and of course next season this rolling into. Do you think that the season, as we progress, the virus as well, do you think it's going to be a change when fans start being introduced?
I sure hope so. Like, I know, Opta Sport and other platforms have obviously added that simulation of fans being at the grounds, and it's not the same. The fans make the game, and it makes it so much more intense, and the environment and the atmosphere is obviously so much better when there's people at the game.
Of course.
Look, this is the thing, right? This is why we all love football, is because we can be passionate, we can express how we feel. I think it's massively important, and I do hope we get to that point very soon.
One thing of watching live football with the fake fans and all that sort of, you do miss that organic, authentic approach to the game, because like when watching United and we're playing against someone like, say, Southampton, and one of the fans says something annoying at the start, it gets me fired up. So I think I'm going to miss that this season. But I doubt that the Premier League predictions that we're going to have in front of us today is going to reflect many of the fans. I think the game on is the game on. I think whatever happens on the pitch. So, let's start it from the bottom to the top, because I'm not going to say who number one is. I know your one's a pretty obvious choice by you, but I'll get you to start first. Who's 20 and why?
Awesome. All right. So look, I've got West Brom at 20. I don't think they're going to offer too much this season. I really like Slaven Bilic as a manager. I think he took on West Brom middle of last year after a bit of an unsuccessful stint at West Ham, and then I think it was in Dubai, I think. On paper, I think their squad's just slightly weaker than the other clubs, and I think the clubs I have in the bottom three are all sort of about the same level. I just think they're probably the weaker of the three.
Yeah, agreed. And again, sorry to all the viewers if you see me looking down. I do have an old school notebook here, so I've got everything written down. But I funny enough, wrote down here saying Bilic the boss. I think when it comes to the Balkan side of him, he's going to be really demanding. But I doubt the team will be sort of that level of Premier League. I think West Brom is just one of those yo-yo teams that go up and down. So I'm not really excited by their presence in the Premier League. I am really excited, though, to see Kieran Gibbs come back into the Premier League. So it's going to be funny to see him back in basically the league. But I think they're going to be 20 as well. So it's pretty unique for both of us to have the same choice there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Number 19. Now, I'll go with this one straight away. And I'm going to say this, but another sort of controversial one for me, but Brighton, I doubt they make the top sort of end of football again. I think this is their last season in the top league. With Aaron Moy not being a major part to the team in that sense, because there's more than just one player. But I think Brighton themselves are, they've got Lallana, Vetman and Dendoncker in the team now, but I doubt they'll be making anything interesting in the Premier League. What are your thoughts on number 19?
I've got Fulham at 19. So unfortunately, I think it's another yo-yo season for Fulham. I like this squad. I like Scott Parker. Like I said before, I just don't think they can stack up against the rest. I think the other sides in the Premier League are far more stronger than what they have to offer.
Yeah, and of course, for everyone watching this again, forgive us if we sort of mention one team now and one team in 20 minutes later, because this is our sort of predictions of both ends, and we'll have a ladder while we speak about this, either if you're watching on YouTube or for the first time on Instagram TV. So whatever you see will be tallied up at the end. Look, when it comes to my number 18, of course, we're going up one. I, again, do hope they get relegated for the terrible kit they have this season. I cannot stand Crystal Palace in that sense. But look, I think they've got a good squad with Zaha, and just trying to find my notes here. Roy Hodgson look, when it comes to a manager side, he's pretty, classy, classical type of old football. But I don't think anything interesting from their end. I know Batshuayi is back there, so it's going to be exciting to see him getting full-time football first team. But look, I think Crystal Palace would be third, last on the ladder.
Yeah, I think, look, we're definitely there or thereabouts with our predictions, I think, so far. I've got Burnley at 18, and I think this is a bit of a controversial one because I know Burnley's traditionally relatively strong. But unfortunately, I think it's their time to go. I doubt it. Look, I doubt it probably will happen. They probably will end up finishing higher than 18 because they're a bit of a workhorse side. And I think my decision here was purely based on process of elimination. And I just don't think they're as good as the other side. So this is sort of like that rounds off my bottom three. And I think that's why is purely they're just the squad. I don't think they're as good as what they need to be.
Yeah, and something I'm going to mention as well is that a lot of these bottom half teams, maybe let's say bottom five, are heavily going to be affected by COVID in the sense of transfers, but also budgets for the club. So I do see a lot of our bottom five teams being in that sort of gap of financial side. With that being said, Burnley is one of those, but my number 17 is Fulham. So Burnley hasn't made my bottom three, but Fulham is number 17 for me. Look, I think they're really just one of those teams that unfortunately work hard. They go back in the Premier League, and when they're there, they're not that sort of, pushing team. I think Fulham is a great squad, great club with great history. And I'm excited to see Mitrovic back in the league. They do have Areola as their goalkeeper. I'm not sure if you noticed that. He's on loan from PSG. And they've got Lamina. So, look, when it comes to a club, they've got Scott Parker, one of the younger coaches, sort of resemblance of what Bournemouth had with their coach. But, look, I don't think they're going to do really well, but that's my prediction. Who's your number 17?
For 17, I've actually got West Ham. They had a pretty dull season last year. And I can't see them improving too much at the moment. I think them and Tottenham are in a similar scenario where they pumped a lot of funds into their facilities and their stadium. And I think they're sort of having a few repercussions based on that. I've got them at 17. You mentioned Brighton earlier. I've actually got Brighton at 16. Obviously, like you mentioned, the inclusion of Lallana is obviously a big one. And I like the fact that they've jumped on Dendoncker. Obviously, this is a different Dendoncker to the one at Wolves. This is I think it's his younger brother who came across from Bruges. Not to discredit them, I still think they may hang on to a Premier League spot this year. With that glorious shirt, I do hope they stay because I'd like to see if they can back that up again next season. But I don't think they're going to have an overly competitive campaign. I've got Brighton at 16.
Yeah, with Brighton, also to mention that there were rumours that Martinez from Arsenal, the goalkeeper, is looking to move. And there was two squads that are looking to sign him, one of them being Brighton. So it's going to be scary or sad for an Aussie like Matt Ryan to lose his spot because he's basically the last sort of hope we have in that league. But for my number 16, I've got Burnley. Again, they're not really the most exciting, but I think they'll stay another season. I have a feeling that after this year, they may go back into the championship, but as a club, they do produce some sort of football. But when it comes to COVID and tight budgets, I don't think the coaches had enough to play with. So as a squad, they'll do okay, but nothing really exciting for the Premier League. And on top of them, at number 15 would be West Ham. Again, another squad with a lot of issues in their sort of background staff. I'm not sure if you saw what happened there when one of their players just signed over to West Brom. So I think when it comes to Moyes, he's just going to be one of those coaches that may get the sack early on. And I'm trying to pronounce a transfer's name here, TWUAN Joe. He left, and a lot of the players were saying, how is the club like West Ham letting a player like this go? And just saying that when your team doesn't have that sort of tight knit and, your loose ends, I think that's going to cause West Ham a bit of, just emotional stress at the start.
Yeah, it's interesting when you get that. I think, I don't know, in football clubs that I've been involved in, you get that player cancer type of personality. And it can definitely have a big detrimental effect on a whole team. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they go with that. At 15, I've got Palace. So, obviously, your favourite kit for the season. Hey, props to Palace. They hung on to Zaha for another window. It seems that every transfer season comes up, and he's always the one that's number one on everyone's list. But hey, he's there again, and I don't think they have much else to offer aside from sort of him, Townsend, and a few others. And I think they're too heavily reliant on those players. I think they need a little bit more depth. So that's the reason I have them at 14.
Yeah, Zaha's never going to leave, so I'm kind of worried for him. But hopefully one day he'll go somewhere. And looking at my next is number 14 is Aston Villa. Look, Villa, they hung on to Grealish, another player that's sort of on the cusp of leaving his club. But like Zaha, they're still trying to work hard for the team they're at. But with Aston Villa, one of the players that I usually sign when I play in the Premier League on FIFA is Matty Cash from Nottingham Forest. And when I saw that he signed for Villa, I was really excited because not many people mention him in English football. But I'm really excited to see him get some game time. When it comes to Nottingham Forest, he did well for them. But Aston Villa finished 17th last season. So look, I'm predicting for them to be 14. But yeah, again, I just hope they don't get in the dropping zone because, yeah, I do really like Aston Villa. Who's your number 14?
So 14, I've got Leeds. I think this would be a great comeback for them. You know, their long-awaited return. I think Bielsa's style of football really will suit the Premier League. And I think they actually will come out of the blocks flying. I wouldn't be surprised if they do similar to Norwich in terms of how they started last season. Hopefully not how they ended it. But how they were sitting top 3 after the first few games. I think that would be great for Leeds. It definitely adds some hype for their fans as well, which would be great. Only concern with them is I know with seasons gone by and their difficulty to get promotion was that a lot of Bielsa's squads tended to burn out in the last 10 games or so. So I think, look, for a first season back, I think 14th is a great spot to finish. It's a great consolation prize. And I just don't see them doing any better than that, though, which I think still is a great thing for a Leeds fan. Yeah,
look, Leeds back in the league, but for me, it's funny, I'm looking at my 13, 12, and 11, and all teams end in United, which is pretty funny. But I'm going to try and do 2 at this part because I predicted that both these teams are going to be at mid-table sort of fight of the season. So I've got Sheffield United and Newcastle United at 12 and 13. So just to say this, Sheffield United recently just lost Henderson to United, as in he's signed back to the club, and I don't think he's being loaned out. In that sense, I know Sheffield United does have Ramsdale in goal, so that's going to sort of help them improve that. But I think next season they'll be gone out of the Premier League. They are a safe team, nothing interesting. And again, Newcastle United, another year, no Mbappe, no money, no nothing for the Newcastle United. I'm really sad to see them. But when I saw Callum Wilson mention that goal is the reason for him signing for Newcastle United, it really made me happy. And I do hope St. James Park does get something exciting. So with that being said, I think St. Maxime at his second season may, fire up the stands with no fans. But I think for that prediction, I think Newcastle and Sheffield will take 12 and 13. So I'll let you do 2 now.
Yeah, sure. So at 13, I've got Aston Villa. I don't expect anything overly amazing from Villa. I was expecting them to sign a few more players. I thought they may have offloaded Grealish and then picked up maybe a couple more based on the price tag they could have gotten for him. But obviously they've hung on to Grealish, which is still obviously a massive plus because obviously he's still a great player. At 12, I've got Newcastle. So similar, I think Newcastle has a great squad. And I think one of the best things they've done was, and I know it's going to fly under the radar a bit, but was pick up Ryan Fraser. He's an absolute gun. I think it was maybe 2 seasons back. I think at the end of the season, Liverpool were looking at picking him up and didn't eventuate. I have a lot of praise for him. I think he's a great player, and he's actually my sneaky dark horse for Fantasy Premier League. So if anyone that's doing that, get on one of those.
And your other one?
So that was 12. Newcastle was 12.
Okay.
Then moving into 11, I've actually got Tottenham. Typical Chelsea supporter response here. I mentioned it earlier. I still think Spurs are consolidating. I think they're trying to play conservative with the squad that they have. Obviously, not bringing in too many overhyped transfers. I know obviously Doherty came in, which is still a good signing. And I think the inclusion of Mourinho last year was a bit of a plug. And I feel like the approach is don't concede too many goals, don't lose too many games, and we'll maintain until we're ready to start spending and buy bigger players. So that's why I've got Tottenham at 11.
Well, you're going to laugh who I have at 11. And no, it's not Chelsea, but it is Leeds United. Look, one thing I'm really excited about Leeds is that we finally have a Macedonian back in the league, and I am going to do everything possible to say his name every week, every day. But Alioski is back, making Macedonia relevant in football, and I'm really excited to see him on the wing. But look, when it comes to Leeds, they also signed Rodrigo. Again, being a Valencia fan, I did watch, his recent seasons, but last year he didn't really have a great season. There were a few minor injuries here and there. So I don't think Leeds fans need to get too excited about certain signings, but I think as a team, they really had some great football. And I think Basler, forgive me if I pronounce his name wrong, but I think Leeds are just that team that need to stay in the Premier League. They're such a unique and beautiful club. And I recently watched the doco on Optus Sport where I didn't know, but Leeds, the city itself, only has one team compared to other cities in or sort of regions in the UK. So that being said, I do hope that the fans, get around that club and boost it up, because it's just part of history when it comes to the Premier League. So that's my number 11. Number 10, go ahead for you.
I've got Sheffield United. I think they had a brilliant season last year. They played some really, really nice football, and I'm hoping for much of the same for them this year. I don't have too much else to say about them, but I do think they're a good squad, and I hope they continue to maintain the level that they've got.
Yeah, look, I know we can say a lot about these teams. We can have a lot of predictions and, saying certain things, but when we're our goal is to make this video as short as possible, but I've probably gone past that mark now. Look, I think for my number 10, and this is a big call because when it comes to top 10 teams in the Premier League, they're going to be somewhat exciting. We have seen teams like Leicester City win the Premier League and Blackburn in the past. But my number 10 is Southampton. I think next season, or this season coming up as of tonight, I think Ings was informed towards the end, scoring a lot of goals in a sense. And I just think they're going to be a surprise package, and also retaining the services of Kyle Walker-Peters, namesake, will be a big boost for the club. I think Southampton, even though they have a shit kit, I think they're going to go really well in that sense. And then to push the number 9 to get this rolling, I'm going to say Leicester City, because I think the Foxes, they've got Rodgers and he loves a good fight. So I hope to see him doing something well, and Maddison and Vardy. But again, I don't see them being exciting in a sense, but I do see them playing good football.
Yeah, very interesting, those two selections, because obviously at 9, I've got Southampton as well.
Wow.
I actually thought they were quite exciting last season. Obviously, Danny Ings was reinvigorated. I think he was probably in the career best form, I dare say.
I agree.
So he was virtually unstoppable, which was amazing to see. It was actually good to see his confidence lift, because obviously seeing him at the past few clubs, and it's not great when you see a player's morale drop off and you see the potential that could have been. So I think it was good to see him at his best in that sort of attitude, in that mode. I'd like to see them creep a little closer to the top of the ladder. Obviously, within reason. I don't think they're going to get too far into the top 6, but I think at 9 is a fair spot for them to finish up. And again, same as you, at 8, I had Leicester as well. So interesting again. They've been a respectable side for a few years, and obviously since 2016 and winning the title. Before the break last season, they were incredible. My only concern with them is I feel like there's a doomsday somewhere. They need to have a drop-off point. I don't think they have the financial resources compared to the bigger clubs to be able to maintain that that high standard. And, I know as much as I love Jamie Vardy, I don't know when his tipping point will be. Obviously, he came into the Premier League later in life as well.
Yeah.
Later in life, sorry. I know he's only 32 or something. But later in his professional career. So I don't know if that's going to have a decline soon. I don't know. I hope not for his sake, but I think that's why I've got Leicester at 8. Moving to 7, these guys I absolutely love. So, love being a cautious term, obviously, because I'm a Chelsea supporter. Wolves. So under Nuno Espirito Santo, they are great to watch.
You mean Portugal?
Yeah, Portugal Junior. I think last season was probably maybe less impressive compared to maybe the previous season. But I still think what they produce warrants a spot in the top 6. Pending some performances by the bigger clubs, obviously is going to allow for whether they can or not. But I think they definitely have the ability to be a giant killer. So they're definitely one to obviously continue to watch.
Yeah. Look, I actually am up to 8. So I'm going to mention 2 more teams. Everton is at number 8. James Rodriguez is back. on the mark of Leicester City, what you mentioned, the best thing about Leicester when they won the Premier League is that they had unity in the team. And when I mentioned Chelsea coming up, I will say why I don't think Chelsea are going to win the Premier League. That being said, Everton, they've made that signing of said James James. And I think I saw this photo of Carlo Ancelotti and him together at 3 different teams, Real Madrid and Bayern Munich. So I think when it comes to that player-coach unity, that's one thing I did love about Leicester City's story, because the players play for the coach. I don't think every player at Everton is going to play for Carlo Ancelotti, but to have someone of his standard at a club like that does show that they're wanting that sort of football. And as time goes, you do hope that it grows. Look, I feel sorry for Sigurdsson at Everton. I think, again, like another player, I can't remember his name right now, I didn't write it down, but from United, that he recently signed from them to Everton. He just sat on the bench. So that's going to be challenging to try and see who's going to be on the rotation at Everton. But at number 7, I'm going to say Spurs. Again, everyone's predicting Mourinho to get sacked. I don't think he'll be sacked. I think the club's done enough to sack, previous coaches, in a sense that Mourinho is one of those coaches that needs time. He has passed his sort of due date, but I think as a coach, he does have something to value to Spurs sort of on the market. So I'm really excited to see what he does for the club. But apart from that, there isn't much I can talk about the club. Now we're going to go to number 6. Now I'll mention this and then I'll let you mention it. Then we're going to our top 5. Look, number 6 for me is Arsenal. Arteta, experienced coach in the sense that he knows what the Premier League is about, but he hasn't coached that long. He did recently win the Cup pre-season. So with players like Willian and some Europa football, I doubt they'll be sort of impactful in the Premier League, but I do see them doing well in Europa, which may be a misfortune for them in the Premier League. So what's your sort of prediction on that end?
This is interesting. I'm actually surprised how many teams we have in similar spots. I've got Arsenal at 6 as well. As much as they seem like the cool kids on the block this season, they've got a good vibe going on with their new kit, and I think all 3 are absolute crackers. But I don't think they have the squad to back up a top 4 spot. I think their finishing position it's going to heavily rely on how successful Arteta Ball goes. We saw glimpses of it last year, and it was amazing to watch. I just think we also obviously see the continual complaints about the Arsenal back 4 and the lapses in concentration and ability, and the typical stuff we see across Arsenal fan TV. So yeah, I've got them at 6.
Yeah, look, Arteta Ball is one of those things that was sort of growing over time. He did have an opportunity to coach under, I'm having a mental brain dead right now, Guardiola. Yeah. And when you look at that sort of like player go into coaching, get some sort of lessons, and then bring his own football to the professional side, it's really exciting. I think a lot of people do complain about the back 4 and Mustafi and et cetera, but like I think Arsenal is at a point now where they need to start pushing for the top 4. I think they've had this period of time where they're too relaxed and a lot of just mockery of the team. Now we're going into our top 5. How do you want to do this? You want to just both go number 5s, then 4s, then 3s onwards?
Yeah, let's do that. That sounds good.
All right. So for me, number 5, and I will have to say it's Portugal Junior. Look, they did well last season with no Europe this year. I think they're really going to focus on the Premier League. They spent £35 million on Fabio Silva. So I'm really excited to see them do well in that sense with new signings. But again, something about Wolves, when Sunderland was in the Premier League and they played United, I literally wanted to throw my TV into the window. I just hated every game against Sunderland. When United comes up Wolves, I do the same thing. I pick up whatever near my desk. I put it into the kitchen so I don't break anything and wake my wife up. But I think Wolves are going to be number 5.
That's a fair shout. Look, I've got United at 5. I think I know you're probably thinking I'm being a bit harsh here. But post-COVID, they were fantastic. Like the previous, last season's break, obviously. Mm-hmm. They were a lot more promising, a lot more attacking of side. And I think the addition of Fernandes obviously seemed to gel that midfield a lot better. Obviously now you can include Donny van de Beek, and it's a pretty decent squad. I just think there's still questions around their centre-backs. Their back 4 is not too bad overall, but I just think, I think another centre-back to help Maguire maybe a number 2 to replace Maguire.
You mean replace Maguire?
Yeah. That's going to definitely benefit them in the long run. This is where this is one of my other more dramatic calls here. I've actually got Everton finishing 4th. Now, reason behind this, I have a lot of faith in Carlo Ancelotti. And I think the board has clearly shown that, because for him to bring in Allen, Rodriguez and Doucouré obviously shows that they're believing in the style and the approach that he's trying to have. And I think they're willing to accept that, the last season wasn't great by their standards, obviously. But I think he's definitely got the backing to do whatever he wants to try and achieve the best possible result. And Ancelotti is a known winner. So we've obviously seen that through Champions League results and winning the leagues and so on.
Big call. Massive call. I forgot about those other signs like Doucouré. So that's a big call by Everton. But for me, number 4, and you're not going to like this, it's Chelsea. Look, just because a coach and, Abramovich have the opportunity to sign players, this is what I mean about Leicester City. When they won the league with the team they had, they may have not been, come on, Christian Fuchs and, he won the league. But when you think about the team, Robert Huth, who can forget that? But when you think of the team that won the league, it wasn't high profile players. Mahrez and Kante, they literally just came to the Premier League after there was the second season together. But I think as a squad, I think Chelsea have a lot of young players. Pulisic has to step up this season, and a lot of players will have to sort of look at someone who's been there a long time and get that sort of leadership. I think there's too many young players who are going to come there and expect game time. But you see players like Batty leaving the club to go get opportunities. So you see a big roster. And look, Chelsea's known for, getting rid of young players over time, like Kevin De Bruyne and Lukaku. I just hope that Havertz and Werner aren't going to be that sort of signings that, 1-2 seasons, then they're gone. I do hope that, Chelsea moneybags do well this season for the sake of the Germans. Otherwise, it's just going to be money going down the drain when they sell them 2 years later for, 50% off.
Yeah, look, I definitely agree. Obviously, being a Chelsea supporter, I don't want them to throw that money away, obviously. But I think I have a more optimistic view in mind about Chelsea, but we'll get to that in a bit. Moving on to number 3. Again, actually, I think, look, I feel like all my top 5 is going to be controversial because I've actually got Liverpool at 3.
That's fair.
Still a good result, obviously. It's still a good season. Their high press, the industrial work ethic, I think it's still going to be successful. Mm-hmm. They've been virtually untouched for 2 seasons. And I think now it's going to be about that transition time where teams start to work out how to combat that. I hope for Liverpool's sake, they can hold on to Wijnaldum and maybe even pick up Thiago. I know that may be like a like switch, but I think that would be really good to see. But yeah, so I've got Liverpool at 3. I just don't think they're going to pop my next 2.
That's fine. Look, my number 3, I actually did have in my notes that there's going to be a battle between Chelsea and Man United for top 3. So I think, again, to say this again, Chelsea and Man United would have that battle. But Man United, of course, Ola's at the wheel. But Greenwood needs to mature to be able to be... Oops, I just got a notifications there. Great timing. Oh, look, it's a Premier League notification. I think Man United need players like Greenwood to mature after what happened with Foden in international level. You don't want players like that, losing the respect for, being professional. There's going to be a massive challenge for David De Gea's spot. So Dean Henderson coming back. So I do hope that sort of gives him a bit more push for the spot. Danny Van der Beek, as you mentioned, is going to help that midfield. I feel sorry for Fred, who recently, came to the Premier League and he's just showed some of his talent last year. But with Pogba being back in some form and Scott McTominay, I can't even say his name, Scott McTominay, showing that he's mature and taking that spot, I do hope that United have that build, not only to be a top squad, but also just be a consistent squad. And like you said, post-COVID, when we had a little bubble, they were showing some form. But I think it's now or never for Man United. Then let's go to number 2, Man City. You mentioned Liverpool, but I'm going to mention Man City. I think with Kevin De Bruyne being who he is now, I think he's towards his last few seasons in the Premier League, and then he will hopefully go to Italy or to Germany. No, not Germany. He will go to Spain. But I think as a squad and a coach, they will play whatever Guardiola tells them. They love to listen in a sense that you see that on the pitch. They do. They are going to miss Silva, and they are missing that sort of defensive stronghold. But with RK, some Premier League sort of experience, hopefully he helps him. He's not going to be the best signing, but at least he'll play under a coach that will help him. And again, I'm really excited to see Ferran Torres in the Premier League, another Valencia player that I was really excited about. So that's my call number 2.
Yeah, look, I totally agree. I've got City at 2 as well. Pep, obviously, he preaches the beautiful game. And they've played the best brand of football in the Premier League for probably the last 2, maybe 3 years. I'm happy to see that they've recognised their weaknesses and brought in RK, obviously, because they had a few defensive issues last season. I don't think it's going to be enough. I think they may need another centre-back. But I still think they're going to play above and beyond the best football this year. Like you mentioned, De Bruyne, I think this is going to be his peak year. I think we're going to get to see the best of him, and I'm hoping we get to see it for the entire season, because I know he's had obviously a bit of trouble with injuries here and there. But I think this is going to be, premium Kevin De Bruyne this season.
I agree. I think it's that time now where De Bruyne needs to do his bit before he leaves the Premier League. Again, when it comes to number 1, it's going to be a tough call for both of us. I honestly believe, even though I dislike Liverpool as much as, most United fans or anyone out there, but I believe that Liverpool will have another season that's going to be strong. I don't think they're going to do well in Europe, because I think they're going to focus on retaining the Premier League. It has been a long time since their last Premier League, and last year prior to that. They haven't made big signings, but I think as a squad, they're pretty solid, and I think they're just going to gel that one more time. Klopp, being that coach that he is, about energy and about unity, he's going to fire him up. It's going to be a terrible time for football, because having fans at the Klopp or at just Anfield, I think Liverpool do need that for the what would you call it? Just the mobility to keep them going. So I do hope, even with no fans or whatever capacity they do allow towards the season, I do hope Liverpool get that sort of emotional advantage, but I predict them nonetheless becoming number 1.
Okay. Yeah, that's a fair call. I think, look, there's no doubt Liverpool's squad is ridiculous, and the depth they've got is, it backs that up as well. For me, number 1, I've gone with my boys, Chelsea. I'm hoping, praying that it's going to be similar to the 04-05 season when Mourinho came in, they spent massive, and then it was a time, I think it's definitely going to take time for them to click. So I've got to be realistic with that as well. But I think it's going to be one of those seasons where, maybe Liverpool and City go hard early, but I'm hoping we come home hard and can pop them late. I'd love for a photo finish where we pop Liverpool last game of the season. That'd be amazing.
No, it's good that you mentioned that.
Yeah, that rounds off the list, mate. So where do you want to go from here?
Well, before we end the list, I want to say that I do agree with you on the point system. I do believe that this year, unlike last year, is going to be a tough one. So we'll see 1 and 2 battle throughout from Christmas. So I 100% agree on that. Let's go into our 3 sort of topics now. I say player of the season, best signing of the season so far, and flop of the season. What are your predictions on player of the season?
I'm going with KDB, Kevin De Bruyne. Like I mentioned earlier, I think this is going to be the year for him. And I'd love to see some ridiculous transfer back out to Real to get the Galacticos back on fire at the end of the year.
Yeah, I agree with KDB. Can you imagine if KDB and Pogba leave at the end of the season for Real next year after COVID? Fans go back to the Bernabeu. It's going to be a massive season after this if players like that leave the Premier League. But again, to retain KDB at Man City for another few seasons is going to be a big call. But a player like that, towards his end, so I do hope he gets player of the season this year. Now, the best signings so far, I think Chelsea have made the best signings in the Premier League. I think it's a tie between Havertz and Werner, but I think I know more of Werner from what he's done in Europe. So I do hope he does do justice for his performance. Who are your thoughts?
Yeah, totally agree. Look, obviously, it's a more expensive signing, and obviously the expectation based on the value that or the money that you're spending on a certain player is going to be higher. So I did have Timo Werner as well. I think he will probably be the better of the players. So I've actually put 2 players down for the best signing. I think if you're thinking in terms of bang for buck, I actually think Ryan Fraser. I know I spoke a little bit about him before, signing for Newcastle. I think he's a really good player. And I think he's going to offer a lot for the price that he was purchased for.
Yeah, we got to remember, like, Bruno Fernandes was signed mid-season last season, and he didn't really get to play like a proper season. But you never know who else is going to come towards Christmas next or this end of this year. Again, the timing is so different, so we don't know what's going to happen. So we're in unfamiliar grounds. But yeah, I do agree on the whole Fraser call. Flop of the season for me is going to be Rodrigo at Leeds. I think a lot of Leeds fans are expecting some sort of mastermind coming from Valencia, playing at sort of level. I doubt he's going to gel into Premier League straight away. He's not, a Fernando Torres at his peak. He's another player that's just done well up front, and he's got a good hype. But for their sake, I hope I'm wrong, but I believe he's going to be a flop. Your thoughts?
Yeah, look, so my flop, I've gone with club, coach, and player. So I don't know if we'll bounce back to you after this one, right? So for club, I've gone for Tottenham. Coach, I've gone for Mourinho. So I think that's sort of going in hand in hand. Like I said, they're going to have a conservative year. I think that's boring. This is the Premier League. Like, I don't know. Don't be conservative. Go and get it. I'm sure if they had a response to this video, I guarantee they would disagree with what I'm saying. But hey, do it. Respond. Come on, Tottenham. And the player that I think is going to flop, sorry, mate, but I think it's going to be Pogba. I think he's going to have a dramatic season. I think he's going to leave, and I don't think there's going to be some good blood left. But when Real play Man U next year, that'd be great to see.
Look, Pogba's one of those players. I think he's just at United, he's doing his bits. Like, as a United fan, I don't really complain about him. There are a lot of people out there that complain about him. But for me, it's a whole team aspect. If a player goes, he's gone. Like, a lot of people complaining about Lukaku. He's gone, living his life now in Inter Milan. And I'm excited because I love Inter. So seeing in the Serie A, he's doing well. So I'm really happy for him. But Pogba, wherever he goes, I don't really care. I think he's just one of those players that, it's like, yeah, he done really well today. So I'm not going to say that on his end. I said who's going to flop, but for a club level or club side, look, it's really hard to choose. I think Spurs is definitely one of those teams, like you said, every year, just not really exciting. So I think, again, another season for him. Coach-wise, again, Bilic, too many people put hope on him. I don't think he's the best coach. I think he's just another Balkan that comes into the Premier League with some sort of mentality and stability as a front man, as behind all the players. But I think he's just going to be, sacked at Christmas time. But yeah, that's about it from me. Any other thoughts you think of before we end the video?
No, look, I'm really excited for this season. Obviously, being a Chelsea supporter, there's heaps to look forward to. So hopefully COVID sort of gives us some sort of, spectacle from a fan sense. So I'm hoping, okay, we're in Australia, but I hope that the fans in the UK can get to the games. But yeah, definitely looking forward to this season. Yeah,
likewise. Again, being from Australia, we don't really get to impact ourselves to watch those games, but watching it from our own end and watching it, on TV, it's really exciting to see football nonetheless. I'm really excited to see the new signings. But again, Premier League is Premier League, probably one of my favorite leagues to watch. There is a lot of other leagues that we do have the opportunity to watch, but I think when it comes to Premier League, it's a bit more special for us. Like you said, signings and just new clubs like Leeds in the league make me excited.
It's good, man. It's a good time to be alive.
All right. Well, thank you so much to everyone for watching this video. Of course, I hope... What's the timer on? How long do we go for?
I think we're over half an hour.
Oh, man. I'm so sorry to everyone watching this. But again, thank you so much for watching this on YouTube and for now, Instagram TV. Really excited to make more of these. And thank you so much, Paul, for your time.
Thanks, mate. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.